Next up, Amber Kaset. Amber is the founder of AK Investigations and a private investigator with over 2 decades of experience helping people navigate high-stakes situations. Alongside her team, she's worked on thousands of civil and criminal defense cases across the country. She's also the creator of the Investigative Expert Method, where she trains investigators to conduct sharper, more effective interviews. Please join me in welcoming Amber Kaset.
I want to tell you about a man who'd been sentenced to death. When I met him in prison, the world was already decided about who he was: irredeemable. Part of my job was to investigate whether there was anything about his case that had been missed, and his life depended on it. What I didn't know then was that this man would change how I understand the impact of certainty in people's lives. I'm a private investigator, and no, I don't usually catch cheaters. I've been working in criminal defense for over 20 years, and I work with people that are defending people accused of crimes. What most people don't realize is this: if I get my job wrong, someone could die. This is how it works. Someone might be accused of a murder, the prosecution presents a confidence story, and my job is to independently investigate the case, find out what was missed. I have to be the one to slow down, stay open, and learn what hasn't been understood. Because the fastest way to lose information, to lose the plot, is to decide too early who someone is. And I've come to believe this isn't just true in criminal cases. It's true anywhere people make decisions about other people, which is everywhere, in business, in relationships, in politics. The moment you decide who someone is, you stop investigating. A little about how I got here. I grew up in the Tennessee Hills to parents who didn't fit any molds. We even had an outhouse for a little while, a 2-seater, no less. I'm not gonna leave this up here. We moved a lot. I was painfully shy and felt like the only Jewish kid around. That social anxiety, that discomfort, turned out to be a gift. It made me really observant, it made me listen, and it gave me a sensitivity to people who live on the edges, people who are misunderstood or written off. In the early 2000s, I got a job at the public defender's office answering jail calls, and because I speak Spanish, I quickly moved into criminal investigations, and I learned a lot there. One thing stayed with me: that being accused of a crime doesn't erase your humanity. If anything, it exposes how much help someone never had. I started my own investigations firm some years later, and since then, I've interviewed the accused, victims, witnesses in jails, on front porches, in barns, and motels across the country. And what still surprises me isn't what people have done, it's how quickly the world decides who they are. Private investigators, we have to remain calm in situations where tensions are really high. People are angry, ashamed, scared, and we still have to find a way to get them to open up. I've learned that trust isn't built with force. It's built by how you enter the room. It's the energy that you bring, and it's how you listen. And over the years, I realized this wasn't just a technique. This was a way of moving through the world. So I gave it a name. I call this Investigator Mindset. I call this Investigator Mindset because learning to think this way matters, because certainty is the enemy of curiosity. And when curiosity disappears, so does understanding. And when certainty takes over, conversations become really stifled, and it colors what we can take in. Now, people are rewarded for being fast and certain, and there's room for that in certain contexts. But certainty can have a cost, especially when it's formed before we've actually investigated. Today, I want to share 3 concrete ways you can use Investigator Mindset in your everyday life to get to the heart of a person, a story, or a situation. And one of the people who taught me this was my client on death row, and the person that loved him the most, his 12-year-old daughter. When you sit with a child who sees a death row inmate as dad, you realize how incomplete a label can be. I'll let her speak for herself.
So, how do you feel about your dad? I think he's awesome, cool, funny, nice, loves me. I love him. He's just the greatest dad in the world.
Now, by the time I met him, the system had already defined him: drug dealer, convicted murderer. People believed they already knew who he was and what he deserved. The first rule of investigator mindset is simple. Drop the label. Labels are dangerous. When you decide who someone is, you get tunnel vision. And in my experience, judgment does two things. It shuts people down, and it blinds you as the observer. How would you feel if you were defined by your worst moment or your worst act? Drunk driver, adulterer, thief, liar. Is that who you are, or is that just a moment in time? If you catch yourself using a label, replace it with a question. Not he's defensive, it's what is he protecting? The second rule of investigator mindset is this. Stay long enough to be wrong, not to confirm what you already think. Not to avoid decisions, but waiting to decide. When I first read his case file, I thought this is gonna be a tough one. I hadn't even met him yet, and that's what certainty does. It gets ahead of the evidence. It closes the case before you even investigate it. So I had to slow myself down and ask, what do I actually know? And what am I assuming here? Then I stayed long enough to let his story evolve as I gained his trust, to let him be more than the worst thing he'd ever done. And I listened without steering or confronting. I did this with genuine curiosity. So over time, things emerged that never would have in the beginning. And I came to understand that in different circumstances, I might have been sitting right where he was. I learned that he was a devoted father. He made gifts for his daughter. He drew her cards. He cheered her up on the phone. And he supported the people around him on the row, teaching DED classes and leading prayer groups. None of that was obvious at first. And all of this he did behind razor wire and concrete blocks in a system that often crushes people. The story the world told about him was that he was a monster who deserved to die. But that story was formed before the full picture was clear. When you stay long enough to really listen, you may realize things aren't as simple as they seem, and there's almost always more to the story. The third part of investigator mindset is a tough one. This is the secret sauce. It's stay steady when the answer comes. In my work, people say things that are shocking, and if I react even a little, they shut down. So I don't. I stay calm and receptive. I sit in the silence. I let them fill it. I don't correct, because when you react, the door closes. But when you stay steady, people keep talking. Then the truth has room to surface, to breathe. The questions and what I asked him mattered, sure, but what mattered just as much is that I could sit with the answers without charge. And I met him where he was, not where I wanted him to be. And in a place designed to define him by one act, he kept choosing who he would be. The steadiness I brought into those prison meetings was something I would need in my own life at the time. I was trying to build a private investigations business with very little money, on my own, pregnant, standing in line for public assistance because I really needed it. I didn't know if the business would survive or how I'd raise a child alone and make ends meet. But watching my client hold on to his identity in an impossible situation helped me understand something. I was in a chapter of my story. It wasn't the whole story. And labels aren't destiny. And choosing who you are is truly an act of courage. Investigator mindset isn't just about how you see other people. It's also the story you believe about yourself. It shows up in leadership, in conflict, and intimacy. It's how you enter the room that determines what's possible. And the next time you feel certain about a person, a situation, or even yourself, pause, not to avoid deciding, but to make sure you're deciding with understanding, because certainty can create distance. Curiosity creates connection, and connection changes outcomes. We stayed curious. We refused to reduce a man to his worst moment, and we dug deeper. And because of that, he's alive. He may never walk free, but his daughter still calls him dad. His granddaughter knows his voice. Someone else decided who he was, and we refused to do that. In your world, the difference between certainty and curiosity may not decide life or death, but it will decide what's possible. So when you think you're certain, pull from the investigator mindset, drop the labels, stay long enough to be wrong, and stay steady when the answer comes, and don't close the case before you've investigated. Thank you.
I wear my soul.